We should come up with some kind of a shtick for when we're waiting for everybody to show up, like hum some music or something like that. Tell a dumb joke. We'll start in just a minute, guys. People are coming in. Aaron, you were telling me about Northeast Dreaming and that you had a pretty good set of people coming to that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
You want to put in a plug for Northeast Dreaming real quick?
yeah.
What
I've
are
just
you guys going
wrapped.
to have again next year? Is it yearly? Is it quarterly? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we do it every year. This is the third year. Obviously, it was virtual this year. The last 2 years we have done it in Manchester, New Hampshire. Next year it'll be in Providence, Rhode Island. So we're kind of moving it around New England every couple of years. We have full days, tons of great speakers. Just with the local Salesforce MVPs in the Boston area and the local community, we have some great speakers. But we have people that come from all over the country and some internationally. So it's a good way to network, good way to learn. It's a fun event.
Yeah, and Providence in the fall is a great, or late summer is a great place to be. So
Yeah.
those of you in the audience that are interested in an in-person event, hopefully by next August we'll be having those. I'd recommend Northeast Dreaming. It looks like a great event. All right, I think we're good to go. I'm going to introduce Aaron and then we'll let him take over. Aaron Creer runs Hatra Consulting. He was a presenter at the last X-Force conference. He did a great presentation on reporting. He's the reporting master. He knows it all about reporting. And today he's going to talk about collaboration sharing with reports and dashboards. And so we'll let Aaron have his talk. If you've got questions, you can throw them in the Q&A. And when we're done, we'll have a Q&A. And look forward to it. And without further ado, here's Aaron.
Cool. Thanks, Leonard. All right, just to start off, I'll give you a little background on myself. I'm a recovering sales manager. I'm proud to say I haven't begged somebody for a purchase order or made a cold call in almost 5 years and never felt better. And I started using Salesforce as an inside sales rep over a decade ago, creating opportunities, logging calls, and then became a sales manager, whereas managing a team of people and a pipeline. Um, and about 5 years ago, I kind of decided I was tired of having that quota hanging over my head. I was looking to do something different and really loves using Salesforce. I had become that kind of accidental Salesforce admin at a bunch of companies I worked for. Um, so I decided I was going to make that career change and kind of left the corporate world and went out on my own and started with Trailhead and then got my first certification and became a full-time consultant. And I speak at a lot of events like these and a lot of the Dreaming events because I feel very fortunate I was able to make that career change. And it's kind of my way of giving back. I love like teaching and helping people kind of further their careers. So I run Hatra Consulting. I am also the co-founder of a blog called Report Force. I'm one of the co-organizers of Northeast Dreaming, and I'm also the leader of the Lowell, Massachusetts Salesforce Admin User Group. So our topics today are going to cover reports and dashboards and how we can collaborate and share with them. This data is important. Getting some analytics out of it is really important to companies. But I think there's a big divide between working in conjunction with one another when we're trying to do this. Too often it's, a finance person asking for a report and just expecting it to be delivered. And there's kind of no insight as to what that report's really supposed to do. So all of these features and functions are going to show you really simple once you know they exist. But there's certainly times in my career where I didn't know they exist, and there's some methodology in here that I think is going to be valuable to help you bridge this gap. So our topics today are going to be requirements gathering, chatter feed on reports and dashboards, analytics annotations, notifications, and sharing, report and dashboard subscriptions, and then sharing reports in Quip. First section will just kind of be more of a methodology. The last four will kind of give you an overview, and then there'll be a demo so you can actually see how to use these features and functions. So when we're gathering requirements, there's absolutely a process that I follow, and I try and get all of my clients to follow this. Some do this more than others, but I think it's really important. The first step for me is what's the goal of the report? And I think this really far too often comes at the end stages. And I think doing it at the beginning really sheds light on what the expected outcome should be. You want to know, what are they expecting this report to show them or highlight or bring visibility to? Because depending on who you're getting the requirements from, they may not have any idea about your Salesforce data model at all. So trying to figure out what the intent of this request is going to give you a lot of insight into that. Step two is, what objects do we need to be included in there? Somebody asks you for an opportunities report, you give it to them, and then, an hour later they're saying, hey, we can't see any of the products on here. And that's because you don't have an opportunity and products report. And again, depending on who's asking you for that, they have no idea what the difference in those two report types are. So a lot of these things are kind of repetitive, but it's really to stop rework, right? I see so much rework on reports and dashboards just because people don't go through this process, even though it looks a bit tedious. I think it'll save you a ton of time in the long run, and you'll be able to deliver faster results as well. Number three is, what fields do you need in the report? Obviously, the fields are going to be used in columns. They can be used in groupings. They can be used in filters. But you don't want to just send somebody a report guessing what 12 columns they want in there. You can set up your custom report types, if you're using them, to have an order and kind of your default fields available, so they auto show when you create that first report. But if you don't have that uniformity there, just have them jot down a quick list of what fields do you need to see in here, because I like my reports really clean. Your default reports are going to have, sometimes 10, 12 fields right out of the bat there. I get rid of everything except the ones I know they absolutely want to see. So instead of playing that guessing game, just have them provide a quick list. Number four is, what time period? Are we reporting on all time, this week, next month, this quarter? This one gets missed a lot because people just expect the results to be what they want, but you really need to know, are we looking at trending over time? Or are we looking at a set time period? Groupings. So we need to be able to use groupings in order to add a chart to our report. So understanding how we're going to group things. Are we grouping this, say, by sales rep and looking at their closed won opportunities for the quarter? Are we grouping it by the account to see what the all-time spend was for a customer? It's really important to do that, because that's the basis of your report charts, and also would be the basis of your dashboards when you add those. So making sure we get that done properly as well. Do we need layered groupings? Meaning, are we looking at sales for specific reps first, but then breaking it down further by opportunity type or record type or product to see what they're actually selling? Number six is filters. And these determine what we're going to return or block from returning in our report. So when somebody says, send me a list of opportunities, are we looking for all ops, or do we want to see just closed won? Are we looking for all business or just existing business? Determining what you want to see in that report, or sometimes more importantly, what you don't want to see in that report, is really important, because if you're giving somebody some numbers that they're making business decisions on, you want to make sure that you're not inflating or deflating the numbers based on what's in that report. Number seven is a chart, right? So the chart is the visual that we can put right on top of the report, and the charts are what are used in dashboards. So it's a visual indicator of the details of that report. There's a lot of different options for that. Bar charts, column, donuts, funnels, lines. If you're using analytics, there are even more options. So, get a feel for what their preference is. And sometimes these really just come down to the preference of who's asking for it. They can all be used to present data. Some people prefer bar charts horizontal. Some want them vertical. It's a preference. They do the exact same thing. Within those charts, do we want to see those bars go down, or do we want to see them go up based on the amounts or the number of records that are making up those bars? So get some feedback on that. Number eight is folders. So every report resides in a folder. every dashboard resides in a different folder. The folder has to be shared, and that determines who has access to what's in that folder. If a folder has subfolders, giving somebody access to the top layer gives them access to the child layers as well. So really important that that's clear. Some folders can be public where everybody can see them. If it's more sensitive data, we need to know, are we sharing it with individual users, groups, who really needs access to those. If you give somebody access to the dashboard folder, they're going to be able to see the dashboard and the charts, but if they try and click into something, they can't get to the report, the underlying report itself, if you haven't given them access to the report folder as well. Dashboard. Do these need to be standalone reports, meaning you go to the reports tab, you go down there, check it out individually, or do we want this report to be put into a dashboard? So a dashboard is just a collection of charts. Each of those charts has an underlying report. You can have one report used in multiple charts in a dashboard. But we want to know, is it the standalone report or is it going in a dashboard? If it's going in the dashboard, again, it's the same, who needs access to the folder that's going to be in? Is it a new dashboard or is it going into an existing one? If so, which one? And then how do we want that dashboard displayed? So we can configure the charts. We can resize them so they don't have to be uniform in size. The longer trend charts may have, a wider view than some of the, something just showing a static number. So get some feedback on how they want to visually see those. All right, and the next section is going to be chatter feed on reports and dashboard. So to use this, you must enable feed tracking. It allows posts to mention individuals or groups. You can post chart snapshots, and those snapshots are visible to those who may not necessarily actually have access to the dashboard itself, but they would be able to see the image. And it helps point out or answer key questions if metrics look off or there's changes. It's really just to keep feedback in one central location. And I think this is one of the most underutilized tools for building reports and dashboards itself. So we're going to take a step back here. We're going to look at a quick demo of how to actually use this. We're going to take a look at how to use the chatter feed to collaborate and share on reports and dashboards. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at one of our reports. Once this opens, we can see that we have our little collaborate icon here. And when we click on this, this is going to open a chatter feed. And now we can post questions, maybe updates if you've changed something in the report and you want to notify the users. So we can mention people here, just like any other chatter feed on any of your other objects. But a really good, useful way to have that back and forth related to a specific report or dashboard and keep it all tied to that. That way it's all in one place. Great for validating the results, commenting on any updates that have been made, and looking at trends. So we can see that that's pretty easy to do here on the report. If we go back to our dashboard, though, we don't see the same icon. And the reason for that is that we need to actually enable feed tracking on that object. So if we click over to Setup, we will go to our feed tracking. And we just need to enable it. It's already on reports, as we saw. We need to enable it for dashboards. And all we have to do is literally check this box and hit save. And now when we go back to our dashboard, we'll just refresh our page. Now we have our icon. So we can open up, we can do the same thing. We can also, within our charts, we have a collaborate button, so we can actually share the chart in a post. And this post could go to an individual, it could go to groups. Just keep in mind that when you share this in this feed, you're placing this basically image in there. people that may not have access to the underlying dashboard or reports would be able to see the image. So just be careful if you're sharing that maybe with external chatter groups. Just keep that in mind. But again, great way to validate your results. If you're making any updates to major dashboards that people are using, I always use this to kind of post a notification. Then you have all your regular text options. You can add additional images and emojis and mention anybody you want in here. But really good way to go back and forth on your reports and dashboards, especially when you're rolling them out, to get some feedback on design, maybe chart types, color schemes, those sort of things. All right, our next section is going to be analytics, and we're going to talk about annotations, notifications, and sharing. This is specific to Einstein Analytics, so some of the features will look similar to what we just looked at around the dashboards, but this would be unique to anybody that has Einstein Analytics. If you don't have that type of license, this really wouldn't be relevant for you, but they allow you to post to specific chart components. There's a visual icon which can be resolved or deleted with those notifications. Notifications can be based on the criteria of the chart, which is really cool. And it points out key metrics, questions, offers guidance on changes to components, and keeps feedback in one central location as well. All right, we're going to take a look at how to use annotations, notifications, and sharing around analytics dashboards. So we go to our dashboard here, and we can see within our chart widget, we have a little drop down. The first thing we're allowed to do is annotate. And here we can mention users, type messages, and it's a good way to get feedback if it's a new dashboard or if you've made significant changes to an existing dashboard. It's a good way to notify people about that and keep it all tied together in one place. You can also attach a screenshot of what the chart looks like, and we can share this out. And we'll see here, it'll show up in our feed, including our screenshot. So we can have some back and forth communication, and again, it's all tied back to the chart we're having in front of us here. You can also share this in other places, so we could share it to, say, a group. Same type of performance here in the normal chatter feed. And you can also export it to Quip. And this will allow Quip users to see the current view of the data. There is a little additional config required on the Quip side, but that would allow you to push this into Quip docs as well. You can download as an image, Excel, or CSV as well. We also have what's called notifications on our widget. And what this allows us to do is we can set notifications to be scheduled based on threshold values being exceeded. So if we said the sum of the amount is greater, let's just say greater than 1,000, and we can notify when the first time it meets the conditions or every time by unchecking this box. And then we can select our frequency and we can save this. And what happens is you're going to get an email once it actually meets that or exceeds that threshold in this case. And we get our notification here with a link right back to our dashboard. And you can see here, this is the threshold that we set. So a good way to get kind of those automatic refresh notifications based on the actual values within the component. Now to do these, one thing we do need to do is enable feed tracking. And we need to do that on the analytics asset object, which I will show you. Go to setup and we can just search for feed tracking. And we will look for our object once our page loads. And again, it's called analytics asset. And we can see right here, and it's already been enabled here where you just need to check that box and hit save if it was not in your org. right, our next section is going to be report and dashboard subscriptions. There are very specific system permissions needed for this, but it allows you to have the report table or dashboard charts emailed to you or to others. We have a frequency of daily, weekly, or monthly. You can add conditions to the report subscriptions. You can also receive these upon dashboard refresh if you choose. It keeps users from having to search for results, and especially maybe executives who very rarely go into Salesforce, if they're really just going in to get reports and dashboards. This is a great way to do that, so they don't have to keep bugging you to say, hey, where do I find this report? You can configure this to send these out to those users directly.
We're going to take a look at how to subscribe to reports and dashboards. Really simple to do. So looking at a report here, all we need to do is click our button over here that says subscribe. And we can set our frequency of daily, weekly, or monthly. We can select every day of the week or a certain one, an approximate time that it would like to run. We can add conditions, like a sum of amount, let's say is greater than 1,000, and that'll make that a conditional push. We can have the summary only or the summary in the report. And then we can subscribe to yourself, or you can add additional recipients, as well as run the report as yourself or another user. All of these do require separate permissions. I'll show you those in a minute. But once we do that, the report will be emailed to you on the frequency you select. It's a great way to allow your users to have that important information pushed to them where they don't have to go search for something. So they're not looking for a report or a dashboard. It just shows up in their inbox and they have the information they need on whatever cadence is appropriate. Now, when that report goes out, we'll take a look at the email that actually comes through here. And we can see, if I drag this over, really just the body of the email with the table, and we have a link to our report to get right back into it. So that's what it would look like. It does have to be a Salesforce user. You cannot send these to external users. Workaround for that is generally some sort of email forwarding service if you need to get it to somebody that does not have an actual license. They obviously wouldn't be able to click into the report, but they would be able to see the body of the email there. Dashboard is very similar. So if we click over to a dashboard here, we will see we have our subscribe button, and we have our same options here, as well as we have the option to have this email when it's refreshed. So unlike putting the conditional statement on the report, anytime somebody refreshes this dashboard, whether it's scheduled to run or somebody manually refreshes it, you would get the notification as well. And you can always add to other people, including users, to send that out if you have the permissions to do so. Now, all of the permissions I'll show you in a second, but let's look at our dashboard and how that comes through via the email. And we can see it's just going to be a series of all the charts stacked on top of each other. And again, you would be able to click into the dashboard itself here, or you could click into any of the underlying reports, provided you have access. Now, all of the different permissions, they're all system permissions in here. So if we just type in, we will subscribe, we can see all of these. They're all in the system permission section. So if we actually just click down into that, we'll let this load and we'll edit it just so we can see. And we can see we have all of these different permissions starting here, which is what you would need to configure depending on the needs of each individual user. So again, subscribing to reports and dashboards, great way to get that important info sent to you without having to go find it or look for it on your own.
Yeah, and our last section here is going to be sharing reports in Quip. This allows you to show data as a live app, which can be refreshed. It allows non-Salesforce users access to reports, which is a big deal. and it can you cannot yet add charts and dashboards, but you can manually create these from spreadsheets that the reports are based on. And this is one I use a ton with my clients because we all know that that's kind of a big limitation of the report subscriptions, is not being able to send those to people that don't have access. But through Quip, if you have Quip license and you share docs, you can put those reports in there as a live app. So whenever they look at that document, they're seeing the updated ones. And you'll see an example of that in this demo.
All right, we're going to take a look at how to share reports inside of Quip. So we can see here we're just in an org, and we have a report here called Bruins Project Task Tracker. We're just looking basically at tasks and the stage, as well as estimated hours for this. So we're going to show you how we're able to pull this report from Salesforce into Quip. So one way we can do it is as a spreadsheet. And we can see here we have a blank spreadsheet. We're going to select our sources, and we're going to say new Salesforce report. And then we're going to select that Bruins Project Task Tracker. So that's giving us the options right out of our org. We then can change the filters. Just keep in mind, if you change these, then the report in Quip is not going to update to match the report in Salesforce. So typically I'm going to leave this as is when I'm doing this. And I'm going to hit next. Now we have the option to import it as live data, which would mean it's view only, and this would automatically sync with the latest data in the report. Or you can pull it in as a spreadsheet, and that basically pulls in the report info and then allows you to edit it from there within your Quip spreadsheet document. So I'm going to leave this as live data, and we're just going to hit import report. This will take a minute to load, and then you'll see the same table as we had in our report in our org. One thing to note is, even though that there is a chart on this, charts do not get pulled in with our reports. It's one of the negatives right now. Or we can add charts in our spreadsheet here. So we could highlight, say, a couple of these, and then add a chart that was, say, bar. Now we're looking at our chart. So easy way to pull that stuff in and then manipulate it from there. Another way to do this is actually embed it into another type of document. So we have a project plan document here, and we can always add a report table right into this document as well. So we'll click down here, and then we're going to insert, and we're going to say Salesforce report. A little bit, there we go. Oh, that didn't take, let's try that one more time. And then again, we're selecting the same report. We have the same pop-up as live data versus spreadsheet. Import to report. And now that table will go in there. And I use this a lot for these types of documents when I'm sending them, sharing them with a client, because now they can have access to all of those tasks that I'm currently working on from this document, even though they don't actually have access to my org. And sharing is really simple. And we can share this either by adding somebody via email or sharing the link. I typically invite them by email because if you do it by link, anybody that gets their hands on that link could have access. And then you determine what their access level will be. Can they share, edit, comment, and view? And that's for the document as a whole. Since we're pulling in the report as a live app, they're not going to be able to edit that table of the report itself. So kind of gets you around that bypass of, you can subscribe to reports in Salesforce, but you can't allow those subscription emails to go out to people externally. Kind of bypasses that. So they cannot edit this table, but they would be able to see it. And you can add many versions of this here.
All right, so now I'm going to give you some additional resources to learn more about reports, dashboard analytics. Number one is Report Force. So it's a blog that Evan Ponser and I launched at Dreamforce last year. And there's a link to the post that was a basis of this presentation. And therefore, there's tons of good stuff. Evan's got some great stuff on custom report types and formulas to count date values in reports. The second one is Dashboard Dojo. This is brand new, and it's run by David Carnes, who's from the Boston area. Super smart guy. If you've been to any Dreaming event around the world in the last couple of years, either myself, Evan, or David have probably been one of the speakers for reports and dashboards. He does such a good job. So this is a monthly webinar where it's kind of a learning session where he'll actually show you how to use certain features of reports and dashboards and field questions. And he's a really, really good teacher. So I'm looking forward to more of that. Number 3 is Salesforce Blogger. This little blog from Ricky Hovgaard, and she's on the analytics team, and it's 100% focused on Einstein Analytics. So if you are using that product, this is a go-to place. You will learn a ton, and they're all great resources for you. So from there, I want to thank you all for joining and thanking the team for having me back, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Great, thanks, Aaron. There was a question while you were talking that I answered, but I just want to reiterate. The question was, will these presentations be recorded and distributed? They're streaming live on YouTube right now, but the recordings will also be distributed. Our marketing team, led by Taylor, will send out an email afterwards with instructions on how you can get to a recording of this presentation. So hopefully, if you have any questions for Aaron, other than you'll put them in the Q&A. I have a couple. First one, just to clarify, when you in Chatter, when you do chat about or make a Chatter post about, say, a graph, and that graph, picture that graph is embedded in the Chatter feed. That's just a picture of the graph at that time. It's not a live graph that'll change as the report changes, right?
Correct. Yep, it's the image itself. And I think using that is a great feature when you're developing new dashboards. So you want to get some. I never just build a dashboard and then release it to the cloud. I want to have it. I'll put it in a folder where only certain people have access to it, so we can do some QA. Right, we want to make sure the numbers are right. We didn't mess up a filter or a time period. And using that feature just keeps all that back and forth tied there. So there's a history there. Somebody told me that exclude this type of opportunity from the entire pipeline. It's there in the feed. They can't say, I never said that. So it's a really good way to try and make sure you have everything right before you kind of give access to the general public to it.
Yeah. I was going to say that I'm a recovering software developer, and your requirements gathering is just the way you gather requirements for any software project. And the problem is not everybody does it. And
Yeah, I actually wrote that because I get just so sick of reworking reports that I wrote. That was the first part of my blog, and then I literally send that link to every new client I get, and I say, before you ask me for a report, make sure you go through this.
Exactly. Because Salesforce, I think sometimes just because you can do something quickly, a lot of things get done quickly, but that doesn't mean that you've satisfied the need or understood the need. You just, produce something that's going to have to be edited.
100%. And I've seen scenarios where somebody creates a custom report type where it's accounts without opportunities, meaning it's pre-filtering out any accounts that have opportunities, and somebody's trying to use that report to see what the pipeline is, and they can't understand why there's $0, and that's why.
Right. Panic. Yeah. Cool. On Quip, when you embed the report, can the Quip user export that to either a Quip spreadsheet or to a local spreadsheet, or is it just locked in there?
So kind of the chart, or the table rather, that you see there of the report, that is not exportable. The Quip documents can be exported to Word or PDF. They can, if they're just a straight spreadsheet, they can also be exported to Excel. But if you're sharing it, say if I'm sharing it with a client, they don't have full access, because without Quip licensing, there's certain features they can't use, but they have complete access to the doc.
Okay, all right. So that's one of the limitations, though. You're right that opens up a whole new world for Yeah,
Yeah.
that don't really want to
Yeah.
use Salesforce.
Yeah, and I think it's going to replace Chatter at some point. I think the new Salesforce Anywhere mobile app is kind of an indicator of that, where it's really Quip based. I can tell you, I actually did my own Quip implementation the week of Dreamforce last year, which I don't recommend that anybody do. But it's been a huge time saver for me. I have it embedded in my org, so when I'm speaking with customers and I'm taking down their requirements for a new build, I'm typing that in a Quip doc in my Salesforce project management app, and they're seeing the results at the same time. So it's been super helpful for me.
For those of us who haven't talked to our Salesforce rep about Quip, do you have a rough idea of what that costs?
I want to say like a single user is like 600 for the year, something like. Don't quote me on that. It's been a year since I've actually had to sign a contract, so it's not huge money. Obviously, depending on how many users you have, your tier that'll change. But it's a great way to kind of bypass some of those limitations of people needing Salesforce data, but maybe they don't have a Salesforce license.
Yeah, sounds good. I think the other thing I wanted to highlight was just you started out with intent, and I think that's one of the most important things you can, there's requirements and then what you want, and a lot of times people tell you what they want you to build in the end, but you don't know why they want it. Helps give you a lot of insight into what you can build, what to build for them, and maybe what they say they want isn't really what they want. I mean, it won't
Yeah, it can
satisfy
be.
their intent.
Yeah, it can be really eye-opening. You have somebody that wants a report. They are expecting certain results, and then when those results are vastly off from what that expectation was, it can really open some eyes of, are we really as good as we thought we were, or are we really as behind as we thought we were? Those can really surface some big questions and sometimes big answers.
Yeah. Well, since I'm not seeing any questions from the audience, I'm going to say thank you to Aaron. Appreciate your very enlightening presentation as usual, but thorough, and I learned a lot watching it. I hope everybody else did, and I hope the people that asked for recordings clearly want to study it. So that's great. Thanks, Aaron.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me. This was great.